The Christian in Complete Armor by William Gurnall. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 14b. Chapter 3. Some directions for the establishing the judgment of professors in the truth. Question. But what counsel can you give me towards the establishing of my judgment in the truths of Christ? Answer 1. First, let thy aim be sincere in embracing of truths. A false, naughty heart and an unsound judgment, like ice and water, are produced mutually by one another. The reason of the fickleness of some men's judgments proceed from the gall of their hearts. A stable mind and a stable heart seldom meet. That place speaks full of this. 1 Timothy 1:5. The end of the commandment is love out of a pure heart and of a pure conscience and of faith unfeigned. Now, mark what follows. Verse 6. From which some having swerved, or as it is in the original, not aiming at, having turned aside to vain jangling. They never aimed at the power of holiness in receiving truth, that by it they might advance in their love, faith, and other graces. In taking a wrong end and aim, no wonder they turn out of the right way. A naughty heart can easily bid the judgment to vote on its side. This shall be truth now, and no truth a month hence, if it please. This is truth with many, which serves their interests. They tie their judgments to their purse strings or preferments, etc. And such men are ready with the weathercock in Queen Mary's days to sing a new song upon any change in their carnal concernments. When love receives a truth, it is held fast. But if lust, after any worldly interest be the cause, then it may be packed away again when the turn is served. Ammon was soon as sick as Tamar, as ever he was for her. And have we not in our day seen some truths and ordinances kicked away with as much scorn and contempt as he did her, and by those that have been sufficiently fond of them a few years past, but to be feared, never truly in love with them? Secondly, attend on the ministry of the Word. One great end of its appointment is to establish us in truth. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 11. He gave some pastors and teachers for the perfecting of the saints. And Mark verse 14. That we henceforth be no more children, tossed to and fro, etc. He that runs from his guide will soon be out of the way. It is no small testimony that God hath given to his faithful ministers in this present age, that few leave them by the leprosy of error appears soon on their forehead. And in thy waiting on the ministry of the word, be sure thou attendest to the doctrinal part of the sermon as well as to the applicatory. The former is necessary to make thee a solid Christian, as the other to make thee a warm Christian. Indeed, hot affections without solid knowledge are but like fire in the pan when the piece is not charred. The Levites, Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 7 and 8, we find, gave the sentence of the law and caused the people to understand it. Planting goes before watering, and so should teaching before exhorting. And the same method people should learn in that we are to preach in. Thirdly, enslave not thy judgment to any person or party. There is a spiritual suretyship hath undone many in their judgments and principles. Be not bound to or for the judgment of any. Weigh truth and tell gold. Thou mayest after thy father, must live by thy faith, not another's. Labor to see truth with thine own eyes. That building stands weak which is held up by a shore or some neighbor's house it leans on, rather than on any foundation of its own. When these go, that will fall to the ground also. Let not authority from man, but evidence from the word, conclude thy judgment. That is but a shore, this a foundation. Quote the scripture rather than men for thy judgment. Not so saith such a learned holy man, but thou sayest the holy scripture, yet take heed of bending this direction too far the other way, which is done when we condemn the judgment of such, whose piety and learning might command reverency. There is sure a mean to be found betwixt defying men and deifying them. It is admiring of persons that is the traitor of truth, and makes many cry, Hosanna to error, and crucify to truth. Echabus out of Josephus told us of Herod, that Herod whom we read in Acts 12, to be eaten up of worms, his coming upon the theater, gorgeously clad, and that while he was making an elegant oration to the people, his silver robe, which he then wore, did, by the reflex of the sunbeams shining on it, so glitter as dazzled the eyes of the spectators. And this, saith he, occasioned some flatterers to cry out, the voice of God and not of man. And truly the glitterings varnish which some men's parts and rhetorics put upon their discourse does also blind the judgment of their admirers, that they are too prone to think all divine they speak, especially if they be such, whom God hath used as instruments for any good to their soul formerly. Oh, it is hard then, as he said, to love and esteem man as man, to reverence such so as not to be in danger of loving their errors also. Augustine had been a means to convert Alypius from one error, and he confesses this was an occasion why he was so easy by him led into another error. So less than M-A-N-I-C-H-E-S-I-S-E. That's M-A-N-I-C-H-E-E-I-S-M. Alypius thought he could not pervert him here that had converted him. Call therefore none father on earth, despise none, adore none. Fourthly, beware of curiosity. He is half gone into error that vainly covets novelties and listens after every newfangled opinion. We read of itching ears, 2 Timothy 4:3. This itch commonly ends in a scab of error. Tamar lost her chastity by getting. The chastity of the mind is its soundness in the faith, and this they are in danger to lose, who will go into all companies and lend an ear to all doctrines that are preached. First, be a hearer and then a disciple of them. Many indulge themselves so far in this curiosity of conversing with every sect and opinion that at last they turn skeptics and can settle upon nothing as truth. Augustine confesses of himself that he had gone through so many errors and delusions of the Manichees, which he once cried up for truths, but afterwards saw them abominable errors, that at last he was afraid of truth itself, which he heard Ambrose preach. As, saith he, one that hath had experience of an unskillful physician is at last afraid to put himself in the hands of him that is skillful. O take heed that you who will now hear anything come not in the end that you will believe nothing. Fifthly, humbly beg an established judgment of God. No travelers lose their way sooner than they who think they know it so well, as they need not ask it. And no professors are in such danger of being drawn from the truth as they who lean to their own understanding and acknowledge not God in their way, by consulting with himself daily. Mark, pride, however it may seem to soar, hath such a mercy in store for them, they may, with Nebuchadnezzar, bless the Most High and acknowledge him at their return, whom they neglected so unworthily at their setting forth. O take heed therefore of pride, which will soon make thee a stranger at the throne of grace. Pride takes little delight in begging. It turns humble praying for truth into a busy stickling and ambition disputing about truth. There is honor to be got here, and thus many, to get victory, have lost truth in the heat of the battle. Lay this deep in thy heart, that God, which gives an eye to see truth, must give a hand to hold it fast when we have it. What we have from God we cannot keep without God. Keep therefore thy acquaintancy with God, or else truth will not keep her acquaintancy long with thee. God is light. Thou art going into the dark as soon as thou turnest thy back upon him. We stand at better advantage to find truth and keep it also, when devoutly praying for it, than fiercely wrangling and contending about it. Disputes toil the soul, and raise the dust of passion. Prayer sweetly composes the mind, and lays the passions which disputes drawn forth. And I am sure a man may see further in a still clear day than a windy and cloudy. When a man talks much and rests little, we have great cause to fear his brain will not long hold. And truly, when a person shall be much in talking and disputing about truth, without a humble spirit in prayer to be led into it, God may justly punish that man's pride with a spiritual frenzy in his mind, that he shall not know error from truth. Sixthly, look thou takest not offense at the difference of judgments and opinions that are found amongst the professors of religion. It is a stone which the papist throws in these divided times, especially before our feet. How know you, saith he, which is truth, when there are so many judgments and ways among you? Some have so stumbled at this that they have quitted the truth they once professed, and by the storm of dissensions in matters of religion have been, if not thrown upon the rock of atheism, yet drawn to and forth in a fluctuation of mind, not willing to cast anchor anywhere in their judgment, till they see this tempest over, and those that are scattered from one another by diversity of judgment meet together in unity and joint consent of persuasions in matters of religion. A resolution, as one saith very well, as foolish and pernicious to the soul, if not more than it would be to the body, if a man should vow he would not eat till all the clocks in the city should strike 12 altogether. The latter might sooner be expected than the former. Seventhly, rest not till thou feelest the efficiency of every truth thou holdest in thy judgment upon thy heart. One faculty helps another. The more clear truth is in the understanding, the more abiding in the memory, and the more operative truth is on the will, the more fixed in the judgment. Let a thing be never so excellent, yet if a man can make little or no use thereof, it is little worth to him and may easily be got from him. Thus many rare libraries have been parted with by rude soldiers, into whose hands they have fallen for little more than their covers were worth, which would by some that could have improved them have been kept as the richest prize. And verily it fares with truth according as they are, into whose hands it falls. If it lights upon one that falls to work with it and draws out the strength and sweetness of it, this man holds it so much faster in his judgment by how much more operative it is on his heart. But if it meets with one that finds no divine efficiency, it hath to humble comfort sanctify him. It may soon be turned out of doors and put to seek for a new host. Such may for a time dance about that light, which a while after themselves will blow out. When I hear of a man that once held original sin and the universal pollution of man's nature to be a truth, and now denies it, I cannot but fear he did either never lay it so close his heart as to abase and humble himself kindly for it, or that he grew weary of the work and by sloth and negligence lost the efficiency of that truth in his heart before he lost the truth itself in his judgment. I might instant in many other particulars wherein professors in these testing times have slid from their old principles. Singing of psalms have been a duty owned and practiced by many who now have laid it down, and it were a question worth the asking of them, whether formerly they never enjoyed sweet communion with God in that duty as well as others, whether their hearts did never dance and leap up to God with heavenly affections while they sang with their lips. And verily I should think it strange to hear a godly person deny this. Well, if ever thou didst, Christian, meet with God at this door of the tabernacle, for I cannot yet think it otherwise, let me ask thee again whether thy heart did not commune, grow cold, common, and formally in the duty before thou dost cast off the duty. 1 John chapter 2, verse 23 and 24. And if so, which I am very ready to believe, I desire such in the fear of God to consider these 4 questions. First, whether they may not fear that they are in error, and that this darkness has befallen their judgments as a punishment for the negligence and slightness of spirit in performing the duty when they did not question the lawfulness of it. Secondly, whether it were not better they labored to recover the first liveliness of their affections in the duty, which would soon bring them again acquainted with that sweetness and joy they of old found in it, than to cast it off upon so weak evidence as they who can say most bring in against it. Thirdly, whether such as neglect one duty are likely to thrive by any other and keep up the Savior of them fresh in their souls. Fourthly, whether if God should suffer them to decline in their affections to other ordinances, which he forbids if it be his will, it were not as easy for Satan to gather together arguments enough to make them scruple and in time cast off that also as well as this, and that there is reason for such a question. These times will tell us. Within every ordinance hath had its turn to be questioned, yea, disowned, some by one, some by another. One will not sing, another will not have his child baptized, a third will not have any water baptism nor supper neither, a fourth bungs up his ear too from all hearing of the word, and would have us expect an immediate teaching. Thus, when once ordinances and truths become dead to us through our miscarriage under them, we can be willing, how beautifully soever they were once in our eye, yea, call to have them buried out of our sight. These things, sadly laid to heart, will give you reason to think, though this direction be placed last in order of my discourse, yet it should not find neither the last nor the least place amongst all the other named in your Christian care and practice. End of chapter 3, having been read by Peter John Parisi's. None of my audios are copyrighted. Please feel free to make as many copies as you desire to the glory of God. The Christian in Complete Armor by William Gurnall. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 14b. Chapter 4, wherein is contained the second way of having our loins girded with truth, viz., so as to make a free and bold profession of it, and why this is our duty, and a short exhortation to it. The second way that truth is assaulted is by force and violency. The devil pierces the fox skin of seducers with the lion skins of persecutors. The bloodiest tragedies in the world have been acted on the stage of the church, and the most inhumane massacres and butcheries committed on the harmless sheep of Christ. The first man that was slain in the world was a saint, and he for religion. And as Luther said, Cain will kill Abel unto the end of the world. The fire of persecution can never go out quite so long as there remains a spark of hatred in the wicked's bosom on earth, or a devil in hell to blow it up. Therefore, there is a second way of having truth girt about the Christian's loins as necessary as the other, and that is in the profession of it. Many that could never be beaten from the truth by dint of argument have been forced from it by fire of persecution. It is not an orthodox judgment will enable a man to suffer for the truth at the stake. Then that poor Smith in our English modernology would not have sent such a dastardly-like answer to his friend, ready to suffer for the truth which he himself had been a means to instruct him in, that indeed it was the truth, but he could not burn. Truth in the head, without holy courage, makes a man like the swordfish, which Plutarch saith, hath a sword in the head, but no heart to use it. Then a person becomes unconquerable, when from heaven he is endued with a holy boldness to draw forth the sword of the Spirit and own the naked truth, by a free profession of it in the face of death and danger. This is to have our loins girt about with truth, so that the note from the second kind of girding with truth is doctrine, that it is the saints' duty and should be their care not only to get an established judgment in the truth, but also to maintain a steadfast profession of the truth. This the apostle presses. Hebrews chapter 10, verse 23. Let us hold fast the profession of our faith without wavering. He speaks it in opposition to those who in those hazardous times decline the assemblies of the saints for fear of persecution. He calls it a wandering. And he that staggers is next door to apostasy. We must not spread our sails of profession in a calm and furl them up when the wind rises. Pergamos is commended in Revelations 2:13 for her bold profession. I know thy works, and where thou dwellest, even where Satan hath his throne, and thou holdest fast my name, and hath not denied my faith, even in those days wherein Antipas was my faithful martyr, who was slain among you. It was a place where Satan sat in the magistrate's seat, where it was matter enough to deserve death to be a Christian. Yet some blood now was shed before their eyes, and even in those days they denied not the truth. This God took kindly. It is a strict charge Paul gives Timothy, 1 Epistle 6:11. But thou, O man of God, flee these things and follow after righteousness, etc. While others are prowling for the world, lay about thee for spiritual riches. Pursue this with as hot a chase as they do their temporal. But what if this trade cannot be peaceably driven? Must shop windows then be shut up, profession laid aside, and he stay to be religious till more favorable times come about? Not such matter. Verse 12, he bids him, fight the good fight of faith. Do not basely quit thy profession, but lay life and all to stake to keep this, and that he might engage him beyond a retreat. See verse 13, I charge thee in the sight of God, who quickeneth all things, and Jesus Christ, who before Pontius Pilate witnessed a good profession, that thou keep this commandment, as if he had said, if ever you will see the face of Christ with comfort at the resurrection, who chose to lose his life rather than deny or dissemble the truth, stand to it and flinch not from your colors. Augustine in his Confession, Lib. 8, chapter 2, Cap 2, hath a notable story of one Victorinus, famous in Rome for rhetoric, which he taught the sabbators. This man in his old age was converted to Christianity and came to Cyprianus, one eminent at that time for his piety, whispering in his ears softly these words, I am a Christian. But this holy man answered, I will not believe it, nor count thee so, till I see thee among the Christians in the church. At which he laughed, saying, do then those walls make a Christian? Can I not be such, except I openly profess it and let the world know the same. This he said for fear, being yet but a young convert, though an old man. But a while after, when he was more confirmed in the faith, and seriously considered that if he should continue thus ashamed of Christ, he would be ashamed of him when he cometh in the glory of his Father with the holy angels, he changed his note and came to Simplicianus, saying, Let us go to church. I will now in earnest be a Christian. And there, though a private profession of his faith might have been accepted, chose to do it openly, saying that he had openly professed rhetoric, which was not a matter of salvation, and should he be afraid to own the word of God in the congregation of the faithful? God requires both the religion of the heart and mouth, Romans 10:10. With the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. Confession of the mouth without faith in the heart is gross hypocrisy. To pretend faith without profession of the mouth is both hypocrisy and cowardice. Reason. I shall give but one reason of the point, and that is taken from the great trust which God puts in his saints concerning his truth. This is the great depositum which God delivers to his saints with a strict and solemn charge to keep against all that undermine or oppose it. Some things we trust God with. Some things God trusts us with. The great thing which we put into God's hand to be kept for us is our soul, 2 Timothy 1:12. He is able to keep that which I have committed unto him against that day. That which God trusts us chiefly with is his truth. It is therefore said to be delivered to them as a charge of money to a friend whom we confide in, Jude 3. Contend for the faith which was once delivered to the saints. To them, saith the apostle, speaking of the Jews, were committed the oracles of God, Romans 3:2. They were concredited with that heavenly treasure. So Paul exhorts Timothy, Ephesians 1:1, to hold fast the form of sound words. In this, in verse 14, he calls a good thing which was committed to him. If he that is entrusted with the keeping of a king's crown and jewels ought to look carefully to his charge, that none be lost or stolen, much more the Christian that hath in his charge God's crown and treasure. Rob God of his truth, and what hath he left? The word of truth is that testimony which the great God gives of himself to men. The saints are his chosen witnesses above others, whom he calls forth to vouch his truth, by a free and holy profession thereof before men, called therefore the witnesses of God. Psalms chapter 19, verse 7, Isaiah chapter 8, verse 20, Hebrews 12:1, Revelations 11:3. He that maintains any error from the word bears false witness against God. He that for fear of shame deserts the truth, or disassembles his profession, he denies God his testimony. And who can express what a bloody sin this is, and to what a high contempt of God it amounts? It were a horrid crime, though, but in a man's case, as when one is falsely accused in a court, to speak something that might clear the innocency of the man, and yet should suffer him to be condemned, rather than hazard himself a little by speaking the truth in open court. Oh, what then is his sin, that when God himself in his truth stands at sorry man's bar, dares not speak for God when called in to declare himself, but lets truth suffer by an unjust sentence, that himself may not at man's hands forbear in witness to it? Object. But this may seem too heavy a burden to lay on Christians' back. Must we lay all at stake and hazard all that is clear, dear to us, rather than deny or disassemble our profession of the truth? Sure, Christ will have but few followers if he holds his servants to such hard terms. Answer. Indeed, it is hard to flesh and blood, one of the highest stilts to be gone over in our way to heaven. A carnal heart cannot hear this, but he is offended presently. Matthew chapter 13, verse 21. Therefore, such as are loath to lose heaven, and yet unwilling to venture thus much for it, have set their wit at work to find out an easier way thither. Hence those heretics of old whose chief religion was to save their own skin, made little of outward professions. They thought they might say and unsay, swear and forswear, according to their wretched principle. So in their heart they did but cleave to the truth. Oh, what fools were the prophets, apostles, and other holy martyrs that have sealed the truth with their blood, if there might have been such a fair way of escaping the storm of persecution. Bold men, that to save a little trouble from men, for truth's sake, durst invent such detestable blasphemies against the truth, yea, deface those characters which nature itself engraves upon the conscience. The same window that let in the light of a deity would with it let in this also, that we should walk in the name of this God. The very heathen know this. All people will walk, everyone in the name of his God. Micah chapter 4. Socrates, to blood, held there was but one God, and in his apology for his life said, if they would give him his life on condition to keep his truth to himself and not teach it to others, he would not accept it. Behold, here is the powerful workings of a natural conscience. Had not they them proved the knowledge of the Scripture well in the meantime, that are so far outshot from nature's weak bow? Religion would soon vanquish into an empty nothing. If for fear of everyone we meet, we must, like runaway soldiers, pluck off our colors and put our professions, as it were, in our pockets, lest we should be known to whom we belong. What doth God require but a free profession of his truth, more than a master doth of his servant, when he bids him take his livery and follow him in the streets, or when a prince calls his subjects into the field to declare their loyalty by owning his quarrel against an invading enemy? And is it reasonable what man requires of these, and only hard from God's hands? Nay, it is not more, not so much as we desire of God for ourselves. Who would not have God make profession of his love to us, and bear witness for us against Satan, and our own sins at that great day, when men and angels shall be spectators? And shall we expect that from God, which he owes us by no law, but of his own free promise, and deny him that which we are under so many bonds to pay? If it be but in some affliction while we are here, how disconsolate are we, if God's face to be a little overcast, and he doth not own us in our distress? And is there no kindness to be shown to that God that knows your soul in adversity? When the truth is in an agony, may not Christ look, that all his friends should sit up and watch with it? Oh, it were shame with the witness that any such effeminate delicacy should be found among Christian servants, that they cannot break a little of their worldly rest and enjoyments to attend on him in his truth. Use. Let this stir us up to get the girdle of truth close girt to us, that we may be able to hold fast the profession of it, even in the face of death and danger, and not be offended when persecution arises. Blessed be God, it is not yet come to that. We have the truth at a cheaper rate, but how soon the market may rise we know not. Truth is not always to be had at the same price. Buy it we must at any, but sell it upon no terms. And let me tell you, there is and will be a spirit of persecution in the heart of the wicked to the end of the world. And as Satan was considering Job, therefore he laid his foul hands on him. So now persecution is working in the spirits of the ungodly. There are engines of death continually preparing in the thoughts and desires of Satan and his instruments against the sincere professors of the truth. It is already resolved upon what they would do might power be given an opportunity to put their malice in execution. Yea, we are halfway already towards a persecution. Satan comes first with a spirit of error, and then a persecution. He first corrupts men's minds with error, and then enrages their hearts with wrath against the professors of truth. It is impossible that error, being a child of hell, should be peaceable. It would not then be like its father. That which is from beneath can neither be pure nor peaceable. And how far God hath suffered this superstitious spirit of error to prevail is so notorious that no apology is broad enough to cover the nakedness of these unhappy times. It is therefore high time to have our girdle of truth on, yea, close girt about us in the profession of it. Not everyone that now applaudeth truth will follow it, when once it comes to show them the way to prison. Not everyone that preaches for it or disputes for it will suffer for it. Arguments are harmless things, blunt weapons, they fetch no blood. But when we suffer, then we are called to try it with truth's enemies at sharps. This requires something more than a nimble tongue, a sharp wit, and a logical head, where then we will be the wise, the disputer, the men of parts and gifts. Alas, they will, like the cowardly soldiers, be wanting in the fight, though they could be as forward as the beasts at a muster or training, when no enemy was in the field, when to appear for truth was rather a matter of gain or applause than loss and hazard. No, God hath chosen the foolish to confound the wise in this piece of service, the humble Christian by his faith, patience, and love to the truth, to shame men of high parts and no grace. End of chapter 4, having been read by Peter John Paresis. None of my audios are copyrighted. Please feel free to make as many copies as you desire, to the glory of God.